Hi, it's Wednesday, and that means it's time for another video edition of Widower Wednesday. I'm Abel Keogh, author of the book Dating a Widower, and today we are going to discuss why widowers change their mind. And the idea for this video comes from something I posted on Facebook on my relationship coach page. And by the way, if you want to like or follow that page, there is a link in the description where you can do that. But I posted a photo of Sofia Vergara last week and her soon-to-be ex-husband. And for those who don't know, I actually did a widower. My last Widower Wednesday video was on their a divorce. Not that I was getting into celebrity gossip, but I thought it was interesting that the reasons were coming out for the divorce. There was like some big issues in the marriage that was leading to the divorce, and supposedly, and again I don't know if this is true or not, but supposedly one of the issues that was coming up is that he wanted kids, she didn't want kids. He wanted a family, she didn't want family, she already has kids from a previous relationship, and so that was leading to the divorce. And so I kind of posted a question on my Facebook page that said, how was this, meaning whether or not to have kids, not discussed before they tied the knot? And got a lot of reaction for that post, actually more so than I usually do, and I actually got some interesting comments on it. And I appreciate comments, by the way, when you want to push back and question what it is that I'm saying. I like it. It makes me think, and I think it makes people who follow this channel and stuff think too. So I want to share with you a couple of comments that people left in response to that, but talk about the bigger issue of people changing their mind in relationships, and especially when it comes to big important issues, not smaller issues. So one of the comments I got back was, maybe it was discussed and we can all change our minds. Okay, fair enough, we can all change our minds. And but I did reply to that comment, and I said, it's a low blow to change your mind on such a big issue. So basically, if you go into a relationship setting an expectation that yes, we're going to have a family, and then you're into the relationship, and suddenly, at some point during the relationship, you change your mind on that. Don't think that's fair to the other person, because I think that's one of the conditions that the relationship was based on, that hey, we're going to have kids, and I'll get into this a little bit more in a minute. But then I got a reply from a third person in response to my comment, and she wrote this. She wrote, "What if it wasn't that they didn't discuss it, but what if as they matured, one of them began to feel that something was missing? What if the desire for children began to grow? This could be said for those of us that have gone through terrible divorces, honestly saying, I never want to remarry. And then lo and behold, a few years later, you find yourself in a loving, committed relationship, and you find yourself wishing for that level of commitment that you thought you would never open yourself up to again. It's not a low blow to share your feelings, even if they are drastically different in the beginning of a relationship." Okay, good comments, by the way. I appreciate, talking about people changing their mind and circumstances changing. And I'll be the first to admit that we are human and we do change and grow as we evolve, right? If you were to talk to Juliana, I'm sure she could list off several things that I've changed on over the 20 years that we've been married, and I could sit here and list several things that Julie's changed on over the 20 years we've been married. But I would also point out the things that we've changed on and evolved on are really the smaller things in the relationship. They're not these big foundational things that Julie and I built our relationship on. So when Julie and I were dating, we took it very seriously, and we were both looking for certain things in a relationship. She wasn't looking for widowers, by the way. That was kind of one thing that she had to work through. You can read about that in The Wife in the Next Life if you want. But I think we both came into the relationship wanting to get married, wanting to have a family, basically having the same goals and the directions that we wanted to take our lives. And so we wanted to join our lives and go in the same direction together. And what I see, though, and this isn't just with widowers, I'm going to use widower examples here because that's what I see a lot in my coaching sessions, but it isn't just with widowers, but what I see a lot, not only in people who are living together and having a relationship, but in people who get married, and then suddenly years into the marriage, people change. I'm going to use air quotes here, people change on some of the big things. It's really not that they changed their mind, but what I've observed is that they really weren't committed to the big thing in the first place. They were just maybe they kind of wanted it, or they weren't sure, or they had their doubts, but they just kind of went along with what the other person wanted, and maybe it wasn't a big deal to them, but it became a big deal later. So let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. And this is something I see quite often, by the way. So there'll be a woman who's dating a widower, and she reads the books and realizes, okay, I got to make sure we're on the same page. I want to get married. I want to make sure that the widower is on the same page when it comes to marriage, and so this relationship could go on. So they have a talk. She goes, look, I want to get married at some point. And the widower's like, great, I want to get married too. And she thinks everything's good. And then time starts going by. Maybe she moves in with him. Maybe she doesn't. But I can't tell you how many times I've seen, where she thought marriage was on the table and they move in together. And the widower, after they move in together, the subject of getting engaged or getting married comes up, and the widower is like, no, not anymore. Or even in the fact where they've dated for several years, and she's like, look, we can't date forever, let's make this serious. And the widower is like, I kind of thought about this, and I don't want to get married anymore. So again, by the way, I've seen it the opposite way too. I don't just mean to hound on widowers here. I've seen it where, for example, the widower has been honest and said, hey, I don't want to get married. Maybe we can live together, or, this is good, whatever this, where we go see each other 3 or 4 times a week. This is a good thing. I don't want anything more than that. And I've seen it where the woman is, again, not honest, that she wants a more serious commitment. She wants engagement. She wants marriage. And she just kind of goes along with it, thinking like, okay, I can do this, thinking that things might change in a few years. So I've kind of seen it on both sides. But the pattern is that people aren't honest with the other person about how they really feel. And there's lots of reasons for that. I think the big reason is they're afraid if they tell the truth or say the truth that the relationship will come to an end. And as much as that sucks, it's like, you should be, especially as you get older. We're not talking about teenagers here. And yes, I understand the concept that people change and grow, but by the time, again, most of the people I deal with, we're talking people in their 50s and up. I have people in their 40s and 30s, but we're talking people in their 50s and up. And by then, you should kind of know what you want out of life. And honestly, you should know what you want out of life, I think, even earlier in your 30s, but just dealing with my demographic audience here, if you're in your 50s and you don't know what it is that you want in a relationship, that's fine, but you should be able at this point in your life to express that to the person that you're dating. If you don't want to get married again, if you're just dating to have a good time, or you're dating for companionship, or you're dating to have fun, that's fine, but where's the honesty here, right? Where's the honesty where you can say, to the person, and maybe you're with a really good person that you like, but why can't you just tell them, this is what I want? Or if the person brings up marriage, again, be honest with them and say, I'm not sure what it is, that I want, to give that person a chance to decide how important marriage is to them. But that fear of loss is a huge driving factor in why people just kind of go along with it. So I see it all the time that people are less than honest with the person that they're dating, just because they have that fear of loss. And then it's later in the relationship, again, maybe they moved in together, whatever, something happens, and then eventually it reaches the point where they're finally honest with that person, say, I never really found, I really didn't want to get married in the first place, or I really didn't want kids, or I really didn't want this. There's something that triggers it. But again, I'm just pointing out that what I've seen a lot is that it's not really changing their mind as much as it is not really having strong opinions, or not caring, or not really being honest with the person about this big issue in the first place. And that's why I think it's important to take dating seriously. I guess, again, I see people all the time where one person's taking the relationship or dating seriously, the other person isn't. It's a completely mismatch, and you see people all the time who get hurt because they were promised one thing, and then that thing never materializes. And I'm sure there's probably a few cases where people honestly change their mind, but most of the time, and guys, I've done this a long time, I've talked to thousands and thousands of people, most of the time one of the partners wasn't that honest to actually begin with. And I'll give you a personal example from my own life. If you've read Room for Two, there's, I got into a relationship with a woman I call Jennifer between Krista's death and the time I met Juliana. Jennifer was 100% sure that we were going to get married. She was 100% sure that we were getting married and living happily ever after and raising a family. I honestly I never told Jennifer that we were getting married, but I never discouraged that idea, right? And inside, if you had asked me, I could not see myself getting married to her. But to be 100% honest, I liked the relationship. I liked having company. I liked being with her. I liked spending time with her. And so I let her kind of go along with the idea that we were going to get married, until it just kind of reached a point where I realized I cannot do this anymore. And, the relationship ended and it blew up. So again, read Room for Two if you want all of those juicy details. But I mean, I'm even guilty of this. I'm guilty of not being honest with the person I was dating. And, I rationalized it away thinking, well, I'm newly widowed, I got all this other stuff going on. And honestly, there wasn't, I should have just been flat out honest with Jennifer that, I'm dating right now. I'm just trying to figure things out. I have no idea why, what I want or where this is going. So again, the thing that people change their mind on such big issues. Does it happen? Probably. Does it happen in every case? No, I'd say it's less than 5% of the time. Just in what I've observed from coaching sessions and in my own personal life and in the lives of friends. I can't tell you as well like how many people that I knew in college, for example, and one person or the other thought marriage was on the table, and they moved in together and spent 3, 4, 5 years together. Marriage never came, and it finally came out that they really weren't that into marriage, or at least with that person. Let's just be honest, they weren't into marriage with that person, and they break up, and then a year later, he or she who didn't want marriage is suddenly married, and things like that. So I think it's an honesty issue, it's a communication issue, and I think in some ways it's ignoring the red flags. The very last thing I would add to this is I can't tell you how many people I've talked to where the relationship has ended and they have acknowledged that there were red flags that they ignored, or things didn't seem quite right, but they pressed forward anyway. So my advice to you would be is make sure that you are aligned on the big stuff. Make sure you're being honest and that your partner is being honest with you on some of these big things such as finances, family arrangements, spiritual matters, recreational activities, things like that, because it's a lot. As much as loss hurts and as much as it hurts to end a relationship, it's better to end it early and in the stages where you've invested less than being married or spending years and years and years together only to find out that maybe that relationship wasn't built on the full truth. All right, I'm Abel Keogh, author of the book Dating a Widower. If you want to schedule a coaching appointment with me and talk about it, you can do so. There is a link below. You can also leave your own comments and thoughts below. And again, feel free to push back on this. I am happy to exchange ideas and do things like that as well. But I will see you all next Wednesday, and take care.